Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the January the 3rd, 2023 Dare County Board of Commissioners meeting. At this time, I'd like to call George Lori forward. George, it's good to see you as always for an invocation.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
First of all, I'd like to again thank the commissioners for allowing the North Dare Ministers Association to open each of your meetings with a prayer. I was originally supposed to deliver the prayer in October, but I didn't realize when they switched the meeting that it was in the morning, which happened to be in conflict with the Jewish holiday of Yom Kippur. And since I'm the lay leader and I run the service, I had to get a replacement for your meeting. But here I am today, and it's right after the solar new year. The Jewish high holidays begin with the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah, and conclude 10 days later with the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. So I thought I would read my October message today, as there are similarities to the Day of Atonement and to our New Year's custom of making vows or resolutions for 2023. So let's pretend that it's the afternoon of October the 5th, 2022. In about 2 hours, the Jewish high holidays will have come to a close. In the past 10 days, Jews all over the world recognize these days of awe as having two notable themes. First, on Rosh Hashanah, we are reminded that all humans have the ability to exercise free will. That is, to make good choices and bad choices, or perhaps the best available choices. We read the binding of Isaac to symbolize choices. It is during these 10 days where our God reviews each and every human being and decrees their destiny, who shall live and who shall die. On Yom Kippur, God forgives all sin between each person and God, but expects people to have asked for forgiveness from those they have sinned against. We read the book of Jonah to learn about repentance. We are reminded that repentance, prayer, and deeds of loving kindness lessen the severity of God's decree. Then around 7 o'clock tonight, the gates will close, our fate will be sealed in the book of life. Heavy stuff for a true believer. So let's offer the following prayer. Blessed are you, Lord our God, sovereign of all, who has given us life, sustains us, and brought us to this season. We thank you and sing your praises for our lives which are in your hand and for our souls which are in your keeping. You are goodness, you are compassion. You have always been our hope. Be with these commissioners and others who serve Dare County on a daily basis. Guide them in what continues to be the challenge of a lifetime. Soften their hearts and open their minds so that every decision they make may be the best one. Humble them to realize they are all human and make mistakes, because the residents of Dare County will respect them even more. Almighty God, grace us with your light when our path grows dark, with your strength when we grow weary, and with your support when we falter in our resolve. King of the universe, you have commanded us to do your work for the betterment of the Outer Banks. May this be God's will, and all God's people say amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a safe and blessed 2023.
Thank you, George. May we stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. County Manager.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Item 1 on the agenda is the chairman's opening remarks.
Thank you, County Manager. Commissioner Tobin is not with us this morning. I would just ask each and every one of you if you would keep him in your thoughts and prayers. Just a few items this morning, a couple of reminders. One is on January the 18th, the board will hold a town hall in Rodanthe Waves and Salvo at the Rodanthe Waves Salvo Community Building on Wednesday, January the 18th at 6 p.m. to talk about beach nourishment. And as you know, we've got some major issues down in Rodanthe. We had a couple of folks comment at our last board meeting, and as a result, I felt it was important that we educate those on the process, and we'll hold a town hall meeting. There'll be 3 ways you can participate. You can actually be there in person. You can sign up virtually there, and then we will also certainly tape that meeting as well for those who are not able to attend. The second reminder I have this morning is we've done this annually for a number of years, and I'm proud to say happy to say rather, that we'll be able, after about a 3-year period, due to COVID, that we're back in person to do the State of the County. That will be held January the 25th. Once again, another Wednesday. It'll be at the Captain's George Restaurant. There's a $10 fee. That's pretty cheap for breakfast. And so that'll start at 8, the breakfast. So please sign up if you'd like to attend. We will videotape that, but we won't have that virtual live. But we will have it taped and be able to play that at a later date for those that are not able to attend. But once again, we encourage you to come out on January the 25th for breakfast in the State of the County at 8 a.m. at Captain George's, and that's a Wednesday, January 25. I received a thank you from Carol Ann Angelos. If you recall, we gave her a special recognition at our last meeting for 40 years of service in the restaurant business in Dare County. She sent us a card, says, really, really, really surprised, and thank you very much for the honor and the recognition. Certainly well deserved from Carol Ann Angelos. And she sends her thanks to this board for making that happen. And then last but not least, I hope every one of you had a very, very nice Christmas holiday. I want to wish everyone who's listening this morning, watching, or who will watch later, and those of you here in person, a very, very happy New Year, 2023. I hope that 2023 will be a healthy, prosperous, and certainly a successful year for each and every one of you. We are truly blessed to be able to live where we live in Dare County, and especially Mother Nature has really looked after us for the first few days of January of 2023 to be in the 60s and sunny. So that's just totally incredible. So God bless each and every one of you, and I wish you the very best in 2023. County Manager?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. That brings us to item 2 on the agenda. At our last meeting, Commissioner Bateman was unable to attend. So today we'll get him sworn in, and I'll turn it over to the clerk.
No? Hey, now I got it. Okay. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Very pleased. That's fine. This is fine. Pleased to announce that today we will do our swearing in for Commissioner Irvin Bateman from District 5 with his lovely bride, Teresa, to join him and to hold the Bible. So if you'll repeat after me. I, Erwin Bateman,
I, Irvin Bateman,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and maintain
that I will support and maintain
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
and the Constitution and laws of North Carolina,
not inconsistent therewith,
not inconsistent therewith,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
as County Commissioner.
as County Commissioner.
So help me God.
So help me God. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Irvin. I could not think of a more well-deserving, dedicated public servant in the at-large seat than Irvin Bateman. Irvin has been phenomenal on this board, and we're really happy to have you back serving another 4 years, Irvin. Thank you
Thank you.
for your service. County Manager?
Chairman, item 3 is the presentation of our service pins. We don't have any this morning. The ones we did have could not attend, and so we'll do those at another date. And so we'll move those down to item 4, and that's the Employee of the Month. And I'd ask Sheriff Dowdy to come forward for that presentation.
Good morning again.
Good morning.
Sheriff.
It's nice to be here. Before I start, I just want to tell each and every one of you, thank you. Makes my job a whole lot easier to have a board that's standing behind us and saw the light or the writing or whatever it was. I'm just very appreciative, along with my people, that you saw fit to give us a raise, all the county employees a raise. It just makes it nice to know that you're caring and we're trying to do something, and it just makes it that much easier for us to do. So with no further ado, sometimes it's kind of hard to get your person here that wins this or that gets this award without letting on that we have. And I think I might have done it this morning, but I'm not totally sure. So Captain Jack, that's enough to say I did that pretty well. Come on up, Jack. It's always nice to pull one on you.
Got me really bad.
Yeah. For everybody that doesn't know, this is Jack Scarborough. He is the captain over at our communications center. And some of those people that just walked in are his wife and some of the girls and guys that work over there. Jack is, he doesn't like this at all. And Greg likes it even worse. So I told Greg that he actually or I told Jack that Greg had gotten it, and Jack and him were tight. And he said, "Oh, I can't wait to go over there. Greg hates that kind of stuff. This is going to be terrible. It'll kill him, man." So, and he's just about as bad as Greg is. So it's been turned he's a little red, but not too red. But after we say this about him, I think he'll understand, how many people feel, that we made the right pick, and they know that we made the right pick, and there was no doubt about it. It was easy pickings. It was just to make sure we could get Jack on board and let him step out of his comfort zone a little bit. So I'll just tell you just a little bit about him. He started with the sheriff's office on December 14th, 1998. He was 21 years old. At that point in time, you had to be 21 years old to be a deputy. But Jack actually he's locally. I like hiring, apparently Bert Austin did too, like to hire homegrown. So he born in Avon, grew up and down that way, fished, hunted, made good friends. But somewhere I believe, as real police officers or law enforcement do, he knew what he wanted to do at an early age. He wanted to be a police officer. And so he was working his way toward that, whatever he was going to do. So he decided after he got out of high school, he went to Wilson Tech. And if I say anything wrong, it's kind of hard to get information about you. That island's kind of tough, I'm going to tell you. But I think that he went and got his associate degree from Wilson Tech. And as soon as he got through with that, the Wilson PD offered him a job. So he went with the Wilson PD just long enough to get to be 21 and was waiting for Bert to be able to hire him down here. And we got to be 21. He came down and got sworn in. So, it was a win-win for us or for the Dare County people because he knew everybody down there. Great guy to be around. And even before he was law enforcement, he had joined the Hatteras Island Rescue Squad. I can't really find out about, but somewhere around 16 or 17 years old, he was a full-time member of the Hatteras Island Rescue Squad. So, you know, right off the bat, you know his heart. He's got a servant's heart. All he wants to do is make sure people are okay. You know, police officers even though that's what we want to do, there's no doubt we like turning on blue lights or red lights and sirens, and until you can get the one you want, you're going to do about what you can to get there. And I think that was probably the intent of Jack, along with helping people, because he's just got that kind of heart. So he went through that in 1998, and he worked down there, worked well. Like I said, he knew everybody, so he was a perfect fit in the community. So on September 1st, 2006, he was promoted to the rank of sergeant. And at that point in time, I think there were probably 12 or 13 deputies down there that worked at full time, most of them from down there, which is hard to do today to get that to happen. And he did so well after a few years. And when I came in the sheriff, we figured he would make a very good lieutenant when that lieutenant left. Jack was already involved in a lot of stuff. You know, he was with the governor's highway safety program and still is. He was the Dare County guy that did all the stuff with them, statistics and all, while Brian Strickland was the coordinator for the Northeastern District. When Brian retired, Jack fulfilled that role. So he still does that. He's still our GHSP guy in, what is that, 20-some counties?
20-some agencies.
20-some agencies in 11 counties. So not only does he have a full-time job at Dare Central, which, is tough enough in itself, but he's got some good people over there. He's also doing that with the governor's highway safety program, which takes him, away on occasion just for a couple, 3 days, make sure that we're doing right and can hear everything that's going on and is able to get us, money on grants and stuff like that. So he's in a great position for us, and he loves what he's doing, and the people that are involved in it, they love him. So when it came to be time for when Trey Pilon retired, we needed somebody to fit that. And I've kind of said, we knew Jack was the perfect fit. And I guess he kind of thought he might be, but he was a little leery of, making that step and going in, because he was happy doing what he was doing. He's always been a law enforcement officer, and this definitely was a little bit different. But I told Jack, I said, look, man, just give it a shot. If you don't like it, you go back to your old job, no harm, no foul. So Jack jumped in, and when he hears what a couple of these people wrote about him, he's not going to have any, he'll know that he made the right decision, that he jumped into the right place, and he's very well appreciated at what he does, and I'm very appreciative of what he does, and so our people in the upper echelon, the chief deputy, and all, we're very blessed. We're going through a new thing now. We're getting ready to put in a new system over there. It's going to, I hope, make our communications that much better. I know our record keeping system will be upgraded by that, and he and his two right hands over there have been instrumental in doing that. And I think that January the 8th or 10th, January 10th, that'll go live. We'll see, hopefully it's going to be exactly what we expect it to be. So I'm going to read you just a couple of words that 2 or 3 people over there said. It wasn't just one. It actually had 2 or 3 that, came together. But it says, Jack Scarborough excels in his role as communication director and is very deserving of the Employee of the Month award. From the first day he started this position, he began improving the infrastructure, workflow, and employee morale at the communications division. Jack led the charge for modernizing our VHF paging system, facilitating the upgrade to more robust hardware capable of getting information to our first responders. He's a boots on the ground kind of supervisor. When it came to reprogram all the public safety radios in the county, he grabbed a laptop and went to work. He's always willing to step in and help in any way possible. He's the kind of person that is an absolute pleasure to work with and to be around. He is easy to talk to. In the face of adversity, he remains calm and focuses on finding a solution. I enjoy every day that I get to go to work with him. Jack is more than a supervisor. He is a friend and a true leader deserving recognition. That's enough in itself right there. Somebody that thinks that about you when you're the man and have to make decisions and tell them what to do, and they still think that of you. A man told me a long time ago, it's hard to be a friend and a leader. I think he was all wrong on that. I think that's probably one of the easiest things you can do. As long as you do them right, they're going to do you right. But I'll end with this one. Jack is a true leader. He knows how to inspire his team and trusts to do the following through with his words and action. He provides support, focuses on developing the skills needed to achieve objectives. Jack came into the comm center and immediately sat down and worked in the center to understand the challenges, concerns, and needs of the 911 telecommunicators. He has attended TC school as a certified telecommunicator, and when needed, will put a headset and fill in on shift. He delegates and allows for open communication with all staff members. Jack has hit the ground running since being tapped to, leads this division as in charge of new CAD system implementation. Locomotion automated dispatch program, tower upgrades, radio system upgrades, microwave replacements, and all associated training, budgeting, and communication with the different vendors. Jack's calm demeanor creates a positive work environment and has increased morale for the department. Jack wears many hats and has leadership and training roles within the sheriff's office, Hatteras Island Rescue, communications, and the North Carolina Governor's Highway Safety Program. It's an honor to work with Jack, and Dare County is blessed to have him. I agree, and I'll be remiss if I didn't tell him. Jack's wife, Michelle, is here. She doesn't know anything anymore about how long, she knows how long they've been married, but has no idea how long he's been the chief of the Hatteras Island Rescue Squad. And they live together in Buxton. And I almost messed your dog's name up. Your dog's name is Mackerel, right? I almost said it, gonna say his dog's name is Mullet. That would have probably got me hit up here in the middle of the thing, but that's his family. He's a part of our family. And we're thankful for that. You've got several years left, and I can't wait to work them out with you, buddy. Very nice to have you. And congratulations on your dad. Yes, sir. Give me a hug. That's who it is right there. Thank y'all very much.
Everything I do over there, it's not me, it's all the 28 of other folks that are over there. It's a great team. I got Steven, Mirus, and Eileen to keep me straight. We're all in it together. It's not one person, but thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, I'll add one thing to what the sheriff said. When Trey retired, sheriff called me, said, Trey's retired. I said, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Because whether you know it or not, our communication system is one of our more complicated departments that we have. And you can't just walk in there and do that, or so I thought. And so I was concerned that, oh gosh, we're going to have some transition, and now, we're going to have to get involved and he told me Jack was coming in. I said, well, great, let's see what happens, and we'll deal with whatever comes up. And I'll have to say, it has been seamless for someone who wasn't the communications person and was a law enforcement officer out on the street to walk in the front door, take over a department like that. It is as complicated as that, not just operationally, but financially. The finances are complicated. There's a lot of money moving around. I can tell you it has been seamless. It has been smooth. There have been hiccups, not of his making, that just occur in that department routinely. Problem solved, ideas given. Dave and I have been able to solve those things, and it has been as smooth a transition as you can be, and that's a testament to Jack. And it's amazing to me that he could walk in there from scratch and hit the ground running like he did. So great job, and we're glad to have you.
Awesome.
I have one thing also I want to thank you for is the effort that you've made to keep road conditions, to share those on Facebook, on the Sheriff's Office Facebook. I've had a lot of people tell me how appreciative they are, because I know it gets crazy busy in there, but y'all are taking the time to share what you know as it's happening there, and that is a great service to the people. So I'd like to thank you for that. Yes.
Thank you. Stephanie, are you going to get one outside, or? Okay. So Jack, if you'll go outside with Stephanie to get another picture, we'll wait just a second before we go into public comment.
BOE guys, what's his name again? Board of Education Chair.
As you, when I do, please come to the podium, state your name and where you're from. There's a green light that comes on when your time begins. There's a red light that comes on when there's about a minute left. A yellow light that comes on when there's about a minute left, and then the red light comes on when your time's up. Public comment is limited to 5 minutes. First on my sheet here is Catherine Fagan.
Welcome this morning, Catherine.
Thank you. Happy New Year to everybody. I had a PowerPoint that I was going to show, and I'm told that it's something that we just don't do it during public comment. So I'll try and just introduce it and then get it on the agenda for the next meeting if possible. But before I start, with Doug Dowdy here, let me tell you, I have worked with sheriff's departments in Detroit, law enforcement in Detroit, and in Houston, Texas, in Washington, D.C., and he is by far my favorite. He does such a great job and is always responsive. And I can't say enough about him. And I have worked with law enforcement at all kinds of levels in some of the biggest places. Anyway, what I'm here for today is when I first moved here in 2005, there was so much open space. There was almost no traffic to speak of during the off season. And what I've seen develop is so much crowding, and we have traffic like we never had. You can't get from one end of Roanoke Island to the other at certain times of day. In fact, I just don't go. I can't tell you how many times I just turn around and go back home. But we need to preserve what we have left. And there is a 3-acre tract of land that goes down to the Sound at the north end, around where that Baptist church is. And one of the problems that families with young children have is that you don't really like to take little kids to the beach because the wave action there is just so rough. I have twin nieces that come who are like grandnieces who are like 7 years old. They always go to the Sound, but they have to go way up to Kitty Hawk, or the one down at the Dare County swimming hole oftentimes just isn't, it's just not clean. The water's not clean. And we're having that big subdivision coming in, and I won't go into that again. I think I did that a lot, but we need to preserve what we have and make better what we have. And if we had that 3-acre tract and developed it to keep it as natural as possible and have a sound front beach right there, you have that whole new subdivision coming in. You have all the people who are already there. Plus, in addition to that subdivision, as you folks probably already know, there's a lot of houses going up. J.D. Johnson has been doing a lot of building. There's been a lot of building. And I noticed 2 more houses going up between Airport Road and Old Man's Harbor Bridge. We need some green space. And these subdivisions and developments are not allowing for any green space. I don't see any parks being incorporated into the plan. There's no place for people to go. If the county were to buy this 3-acre tract of land, it would give locals a place to go, especially those with small children. They don't want to pack everything up and go up the beach. They want to be able to just go down the street because you only have an hour or so before dinner after school or something. Go and fool around there. It would give you a place to put in with kayaks and paddle boards. It's a great opportunity to preserve at least one little piece there. I would suggest no parking spaces because we want to be able to have people walking and biking there so that it stays local and it stays more natural. I've looked into funding. I was thinking with all the new houses going up, that increases your tax base. So that's one way. Somebody informed me that it's probably just a wash with what it takes to support those houses by the county. But there are also a lot of grants. Biden has a 30 by 30 plan, and it's saving 30% more land by 2030. And there are grants involved in that program. There's like 2 or 3 grants that I have found that would help to finance it. Plus, I've spoken with the Boy Scouts and some other civic groups who cannot politically come out and say, oh, yeah, it's a great idea. But what they will say is that they will be happy to do like trail maintenance and, as you know, some of their civic things that they do. So I believe we're going to have it on the agenda. Actually, it's kind of good that it'll be on the agenda for February because I would like to do more research on how to finance, not just acquiring it, but also maintaining it, because it will take some maintenance, which I think a lot of it can be done by just the locals, you know, the trail maintenance. So I think that most of you have seen some of the pictures of the property. At the February meeting, I'll do my PowerPoint and have some more, what am I trying to say? Oh, information on grant money that might be available. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine, and sorry about that PowerPoint on the public, but I appreciate your understanding there. That was my bad, so
No.
we look forward to seeing that in February.
Oh, I'm going to make it even better by February.
Okay, all right.
Is there other public comment this morning? Anybody else here for public comment? Seeing none here, is there any public comment from Buxton?
No comment from Buxton.
With that, Mr. Chairman, we close public comment and we move on to item 6, and that's the presentation of the fiscal year 2022 audit report. And we have Dave and Bob and his team here for that presentation.
Good morning, Bob. Can you hear us? Try that again, Bob. We couldn't hear you.
Okay, is that better now?
Yes, sir. We got you. We got you up and running. Good to see you.
Nice to see you as well. So yeah, it's always great to be in your company, Chairman Woodard and other commissioners. It's one of the highlights of my year to come before you fine folks and to present this audit report. I'm just sorry we can't be there in person today, but thank goodness for technology. It gives us these great tools that we can do it remotely and feel like we're almost in person. So it's okay to be this way. So yep, it's good.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask?
As has been said a couple of times.
Bob,
on, Bob.
Hold on a minute. We got a commissioner who wants to ask a question.
Logistically, should we hold all questions for Bob or Dave, or may I ask them as they're presenting?
I'll yield to them and see what they would prefer. But the Commissioner Ross has some questions. He wants to know if he should do it during your presentation or wait until the end. But what is y'all's preference? You want to wait till you finish?
I'll let Bob go.
Okay. Is that okay? And then Bob, you go ahead and do your thing, and I'm sure Commissioner Ross will have some questions for you.
Great, I'll be glad to. So as has been said a couple of times today, I'd certainly like to extend each of you a happy new year, and hope that 2023 will be a year filled with many, many blessings and good health for each of you. I'd like to also introduce today that's joining with me, Dan Mara. You've seen him before in the past. So Dan has just celebrated his 1-year anniversary as a partner in the firm. He became partner on January 1st a year ago. And Dan's been with Potter & Company now for, golly, probably 15 plus years, I guess, 15 to 18 years, plus or minus, and has worked on the Dare County audit for all these many, many years. And so, I don't think there's a single year when he's been with the firm that he's not been to Dare County and been a great part of the team. And then he's continuing to move through the ranks. I'm in my 43rd year of doing this. I've been close to 30 years of coming to Dare County and serving and working with you all. And so I'm at the stage in my life where I'm starting to do some transitions and starting to cut back a little bit on the time that I'm devoting to the firm. And so as part of that process, we've been trying to do an orderly transition with Dan and some of the rest of our team and everything. So as the future moves on, you haven't gotten rid of me yet. I don't think I'm going to completely disappear off the radar screen yet, but you'll be seeing more and more of Dan as we continue to continue our relationship together. But we're just so appreciative of the relationship. It's been a great time with Dare County. As you know, you have extremely competent folks and staff to work with down there. And so it's just been a pleasure for us to work with them and be in a partnership on these annual audits every year. Now, I think we're going to do, as we have done in the past, I'm going to make a few kind of high-level comments about the audited financial statements, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dave, and he has a more extensive PowerPoint presentation that'll get you a little bit more down into the weeds. But first, you certainly are to be congratulated and commended for the job as commissioners that you all did for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2022. It was another significantly successful financial year for the county. There's been some significant increases in net position and/or fund balance, and I know Dave will tell you a little bit more about what created those. You're well aware of there was some federal money that came in, about $7.1 million of some ARP money that came in due to some of these COVID relief programs that certainly was unexpected and unplanned, but gave us a great shot in the arm for Adair County, as well as all other local governments, not only North Carolina, but across the nation. So that's been a good thing. The audited financial statements continue to grow. Every year they just get more and more extensive, and it's very, very easy to get lost in that document. The document is almost 250 pages long. So let me just kind of walk you through that a little bit. Beginning on page 2 is a letter of transmittal. This is 4 or 5 pages in a narrative form that's written by your staff there that talks about the economic climate, talks about financial highlights and trends, and I think it's just a good way to really spend some time reading through that to get a good snapshot of what happened in the 21-22 fiscal year. On page 12 is our independent auditor's report. The first paragraph, it jumps right in. This report has changed. It's set up a little bit in the last year or two, so it's a little bit not what you're used to seeing, but it's a very extensive and addresses a lot of things of what we do, what our responsibilities are, or the way we conduct the audit, the standards that we use to apply by to perform the audit. But it jumps right in the first paragraph and gives our audit opinion. I think if you'll read through that, it does state that your financial statements are fairly presented and there were no exceptions noted.
Bob, if I may, next time, let's lead with that. That's kind of a good lead.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Next time we could lead with that. That's kind of a strong position. Okay, thanks.
I
Don't
agree
save it
totally.
for page 3.
I agree totally. Yep. And we always like to open the best present first. No. On page 15 is the management's discussion and analysis. And again, in narrative form, this gets into the actual financial performance of the year. And it's just a great way for you all to get into the audit report and to spend some time there to see what really happened during the year. A couple of highlights that are noted in that section of the audited financial statements. On page 15, I'll point out that your general fund unassigned fund balance is 34.53% of revenues, and our target is 21%. Last year, it was right at 30%. So we had a significant growth in that, and it is well above your target policy. So you are exceptionally, I'm sure you're exceptionally proud of that and the work that's been done to get you in that position. And again, and a lot of that was made possible by this $7.2 million from the American Rescue Plan Fund. Moving on through that a little bit more on pages 20 and 21, there's some tables in there that show comparisons of their governmental funds and our business type funds. And these are what we call on the full accrual basis. We have 2 different sets of presentations in your financial statements. We have what we call on the budgetary basis, and then we make conversion from our budgetary basis to our full accrual basis, which just gives us a better depiction of what it would look like if it were all in a more of a full business normal kind of a situation. But in both of those, you'll see significant increases. The governmental funds increased the net position by $60 million this year. Last year was a $24 million increase. So our net position has gone up to over $100 million on those governmental funds. Business type had a $1.1 million. In our business type funds, that's our water and sewer situation. So again, just great increases with all of that. As far as the budgetary based statements go, on page 35, you will see the general fund. The general fund in and of itself, just pure general fund, increased by $7.3 million this past year.
And are we supposed to have something? He's referring to pages. I don't have a thing.
It's not on your.
247 pages last year.
Yeah, Bob, you keep referring to pages. We don't have any of them. We're hearing you clearly. It just, we aren't able to reference anything. We're just listening.
I'm sorry. I didn't realize you didn't have copies of the financials in front of you. Okay, I'll forget the page references then. So yeah, the general fund increased by itself, fund balance of by $7.3 million. But the general fund also consists of, I think there's 6 other funds that are sub-funds of the general fund. And when they were all consolidated together, there was even more of a significant increase. One other fund that we've talked about much in the past, the self-insurance fund, which is where we self-insure internally. There were some years back, 3, 4, 5 years ago, where that was running at a deficit fund balance. And I know you folks put some good policies in place to try to shore that up and make sure we had that reversed and to give us more opportunity to have the appropriate reserves in that situation. It had another increase this year. This year it had a $1.4 million increase. Last year was 1.7. So we're getting to where that fund now is in a much, much healthier position than it probably ever has been. The middle section of the audited financial statements are about 70 pages of what we refer to them as footnotes or disclosures. And again, these are narrative forms of things that just support all the numbers and all the reasons and all the things that happen in these audited financial statements. So you can cross-reference and read through if you need to see what's happening in that. There was one new professional standard implementation in the 22 audit year. There was a new standard that came out in regards to leases and how we deal with the recording of leases. In the past, we've had what are called capital leases and operating leases. And if you had a capital lease, that was akin to being like you were financing a tangible piece of equipment. You would capitalize it as you would anything else and depreciate the asset and pay out the lease liability. An operating lease, for instance, like if you rented a piece of real estate, was pay as you go. You know, when you made a lease payment, it was expensed. But what happened with this new standard now is that they have changed them from capital and operating to their kind of capital and financing leases. And these new leases that are akin to the real estate section, we now have to capitalize those as well. And if you will see a new line item in your balance sheet that's called a right to use asset. So what we're doing is we're taking kind of an intangible asset and we're just putting it on your books and putting an associated liability. So in the past, where it was just in the disclosures and we explained what that relationship was, now it actually has actually hit your financial statements. So you can see what the future value of that lease term is and what the future obligation of that lease liability is. There wasn't much of that at Dare County. It does not at all have a material impact on your financial statements. And there's a disclosure that explains that at the end of the footnotes. It just showed we had to make some restatements, but I think probably in the business type, the largest restatement was maybe $100,000. So in terms of your financial statements, that's really not that significant. The section right after the footnotes are this is getting into the weeds here. So these are the detailed financial statements, fund by fund, of how each fund performed as compared to budget. So it's good information there. There's a couple of tables in here on our tax collections. Our tax collection rates in Dare County have always been exemplary. Last year, there was 99.64% of our taxes were collected. Prior year was 99.68. Prior year, 99.25. So, you know, we're always at a great collection rate above, you know, several basis points above what the statewide average is. The next section is a statistical section. This has always been kind of one of my favorite, just because I'm a visual person, and this section gives you a 10-year comparison of all kinds of financial information as well as demographic information, you know, number of employees, largest taxpayers, you know, largest employers, and just all these other demographic things. So it really is a good pictorial of the growth and the trends of what's happened, excuse me, in Dare County and economically. So it's a good place to spend some time looking through that. The last section of the audited financial statements is the compliance section. As I've told you in the past before, not only do we do a financial audit, but we also have to do some audit work on compliance requirements for certain federal and state financial assistance that you get, financial awards that you get. So there's a couple of reports in there that are addressing the ones that we did. There's one where we have to do work just in accordance with governmental auditing standards, and there's one for the federal funds that we audited, and then there's one for state funds that we audited. And then there's actually a detailed schedule that show all of these federal and state awards that you got. In this past year, you actually got about $12.5 million worth of federal funds and probably about $3.5 million of state funds. So that's a lot of money that we're getting that we have to do for work on. In none of those situations did we have any findings or any compliance issues with any of the work that we did with that. So with that, I will turn it over to David and let him do his deep dive.
Morning. I'm going to contradict what Bob said. I changed the PowerPoint trying to avoid the weeds. So if there's any questions I need to follow up with, of course, just let me know and all the answers are there. There's 247 pages of them. All right. We didn't print out copies. This is the website address if you want to type that into your browser. Sorry, but it's on Dare County Department's finance audits. So that's the easiest way to get there. All right. So quickly, you added 5 new funds for 22. Those are the new funds. Some of them are required by, well, actually, most of them are required by contract. Home health and hospice, we have to have that fund for the sale contract. The rescue plan was required by the grant, and the Department of State Treasurer. Opioid settlements required by the contract. And we added an irrevocable trust fund for the law enforcement officer separation allowance. And as Bob and I said, it grew to 247 pages from 230 some, and that was mostly because of that GASB 87 thing on leases that Bob mentioned. As he said, there's your general fund. If you go back 5 years ago, we had one general fund, and that's, that was the budget work. But now we've separated. So your 10 fund is all the operating expenditures.
Dave, the 10 fund. The 10 fund is it's referred to, I was tracking or trying to, we alternately referred to 10 fund, general fund. Are they the same thing during the presentation here in the deck?
Well, go back to that. The consolidated general fund
Yes.
in the statements are all of those funds consolidated and combined. The 10 fund is just the operating expenditures. So when you normally talk about the county budget, that's the 10 fund.
Okay.
Then if you want to go and see the debt service, the capital outlay, the capital improvement plan, that's the capital investment. That's 11. Disaster recoveries, 12. There's several of them that we combined. Then there's a test for what other funds you have to show up in front of the report, and those are your major funds, the ones that have the most activity. And for you, it's always beach nourishment, and for several years, it's been capital projects. Then all the other ones are non-major. All those little, what we call special revenue funds, are there because it's got an external restriction on the revenue. And the best example of that's 911. You can't use that money for anything else. It has to be used for that. So all of these special revenue funds are in that position. Then water, as a reminder, you got 3 funds that make up for that. We have to have the capital reserve fund for what we used to call impact fees, which now are called system development fees. As Bob mentioned, you got 2 internal service funds, which get allocated out to all the others because they're just there to serve other funds and departments. You've got 2 pension trust funds. We already had one for retiree health, which everybody calls OPEB, which is other post-employment benefit. And we created one for the law enforcement officer special separation allowance. They're irrevocable trust. They're technically separate legal entities, but for purposes of the audit, they're included. And then all the other stuff that doesn't have a home, we call fiduciary. Like we collect taxes from municipalities and then pass them through. All right, Bob mentioned real quickly, and this is not an accounting lesson, but to give you an example of what my profession is doing to us is everything with the lease, we just did that. And then Now I just read an article, there's a shortage of county majors, there's a shortage of CPAs, there's an even greater shortage of CPAs that want to work in government. I went to a class 3 weeks ago.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, who would not want to pursue a career in this field? What would, I can't believe that, Dave. Come on, that's
I knew
impossible.
that was coming. But Department of State Treasurer said there's 551 cities and towns in the state, and 114 of them are currently on the unit assistance list at the state treasurer's office. And that's, whether it's general fund or water and sewer, they got an issue where they're being, given extra attention and being sent help. So at the same time, we say, we're going to take leases and change it from this to that. That's what you got to do now. And so this year, it's the same thing for software. Our Munis software, we just pay to use it every year. Not anymore. We've got to do this now. So it's just, at the same time, it's worse. We're making it worse. But
Dave, did the change on leases actually help reveal or more clearly represent? Because I couldn't figure out any benefit other than just adding more complexity and eliminating operating leases.
in some cases it could, because, sometimes you get leases because a place may only be able to afford the annual payment and there's a buried, pretty high imputed interest rate in it. This will expose that interest component that you're being charged in the lease.
Yeah, okay,
In that case, yeah.
okay. That's a good point.
But what Bob mentioned for us, for water, most of ours were the other side where we were the lessor.
Right.
Or, excuse me, we were the lessee. No, we were the lessor. For the antennas on the water towers. That just the adjustment, the prior period adjustment was over 100,000, and it had some effects because it took what used to be non-operating revenue and made it operating revenue, and it kind of screwed around.
Again,
with the
I wasn't
coverage
trying to get a
numbers and-
full discussion, just trying to figure out, is there a significant benefit? Because I couldn't find one,
No,
but keep going.
There's not. There's really not. Okay, and you've seen this chart before in the budget, but it's 10 years of your key revenue changes. So
Growth.
look at what happened in 21 and 22. 21 was just kind of ridiculous. 22 was 10 to 13% more than 21. And, the question we faced when you did this year's budget, and we'll face again with next year's, is that a new normal? Or are we going to go back to what was 2018-ish or 19-ish? And we don't know the answer, but
Just 1 second, Dave. I was sworn in January of 17 to join this board. Retail sales in 17
Yes.
taxable were 1,484,000. This year just finished, 2,003,000, more than a 50% increase in the short time that I've been sitting on the board.
that's what I was going to mention, 92% in 10 years.
Is that true growth in organic, or is that just piling on inflation for 40 of the 50%?
Well,
I think it's mostly
some of it's
inflation.
expansion of the tax base, but not even 10% of that, where certain things that didn't used to be taxable are subject to sales tax now.
Also with the amount of additional tourism we had in the last couple of years, way above.
Well, that's what I'm seeking,
Right.
Steve. Was it organic tourism growth, or is it just everybody doubled their prices and stuff like that?
Nah, I see it as not really doubling anything. It's just that we were a drive destination. Nobody could travel anywhere. So it was just a temporary growth in tourism.
Well, I've been shopping and the prices I'm seeing in retail
think
are
it's a mix.
extraordinarily high.
Yeah, no, it's a
And the
mix.
tax on those extremely high prices are what drive this number in a significant share, is my opinion. I haven't done test or analysis of it, but it just struck me when I looked at that, over 50% since I just sat on this board. That's amazing to me. Okay.
Dave, just a question also, Bob. For example, on the occupancy tax, is that 7.53%? Does that mean that it's 7.53% over the prior year?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Those are each annual
I just wanted to be,
changes.
yeah, okay, thank you.
Dave, I got a question. So when did they start taxing labor? Like when you went to,
Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of.
That was 2017,
17, 18, 17.
so that would affect this 2,000, the amount of taxable.
Right.
So we'll make a comment. Let's talk about this next year at the same time and see if we see the growth that we have right now. We're not going to see that.
Why not?
Well, first of all, your bookings on your cottages and houses next year, they were down 30% in October, which is the largest booking month prior to the end of the year. And they were down 30% for next year.
It's still going
So
to
you're
be
not gonna see
stable.
it.
It's, yeah, but this is just nuts
you're not gonna
growth these past.
We're gonna come back to the normal.
2019.
Yeah, we're gonna come back to the
2018.
2019 numbers.
But folks may just be waiting to see kind of what's going to happen with all this inflation and stuff
Yeah.
before they make reservations
Right.
as well. So whole lot of dynamics right now.
Yeah. But that labor would have a lot to do with the taxable money there. Because everything that you get your car fixed.
Yeah. Yeah, you'd look, especially the statewide jump in 2018, which would have been the year after that labor, instead of, the 4%, it was 5 and 6%. So it did. Just some items I picked out from different places in the report. Governmental debt is only 0.73% of assessed property value. When you go to rating agencies, anything under 1 is very good. And I forgot to add one. Your debt service as a percentage of expenditures is down to almost 16%. Anything under 20 is good. As Bob mentioned, your consolidated general fund balance is 34% of our operating revenues, which is our policy. That comes out to just over 41 million. If you take North Carolina's unique, we got to show a number called reserve by state statute. If you take that and combine it to the unassigned, that's a total of almost 61. That very first item, the debt below 1%, you did that when you financed, you added the debt for 6 beach nourishment projects at the same time. And then finally, you've been the highest county for school funding, local current expense funding, in 19 out of the last 20 years. The 1 year was in 22, Orange County passed there.
I'm sorry? Orange County is the
Orange
only
County.
county with a higher local expense contribution?
1 year.
Yes.
For 1 year. At Chapel Hill. Yep.
And how much was our expense contribution, Dave, that made us the highest other than that one?
I think it's 4,900 and something.
Yeah,
Almost 5.
$25.4 million, which represents just over 36% of the school's operating budget. When I was at the school board candidate forum before the election, one of the candidates referenced that he wished the county would do more since we were only contributing 24% of the budget. I regret Mr. Payne's not here. I was going to help make sure that we communicated exactly the percentage, dollar amount, and per pupil so that the board would be completely armed with the facts.
It's always been high. 30.
Yeah, it's always good to have the facts. Okay, thank you, Dave.
Sure. The water system, just so you know, Roanoke Island, Hatteras Island, and Collington are complete with the automated meter reading system. Duck's 30% complete, Southern Shores 40, and Kitty Hawk 60. We got the certificate of achievement from the GFOA. That's the 31st year for that, 31 a year in a row. As Bob said, you got a clean audit opinion, and there were no grant findings and no question cost. And I'm going to jinx it. It's been since 1996. That's 26 years, and I guarantee you there's no other county that's done that in North Carolina.
Did I see a clean audit opinion on bullet point 1, 2, 3 on page 4?
Yes, sir.
I'll offer the same advice. Let's lead with that one on page 1. That's kind of a strong statement.
Well, I understand, but in North Carolina, we wouldn't be allowed to stand here in front of you without that. So.
But I mean, it's important. You guys do a phenomenal job, Dave. And Bob was right to congratulate you and recognize the competence of you and your team. And it's no small task. As you said, how many counties were currently under local government watch or something?
Counties, I don't know.
Well, you said
114
something.
Towns and cities.
Towns and cities, sorry. So clearly, it's not a layup. So I'm trying to just push some credit and compliment to you guys. So thank you.
Bob and his team tested 2 programs for major federal testing, which was WIC and the American Rescue Plan. They had to do one for the state, which was the DEQ grant for Buxton Beach Nourishment. And then some other things the board eliminated during the year, the law enforcement officers special separation and allowance liability. That means we've got enough in the trust now, the irrevocable trust. It's about $275,000 more than the calculated liability. You added another $1 million to the retiree health trust. And from a combination of different things, we took that retiree health liability from 175 million down to 121 million in 1 year. That was sitting down with the actuary to look at what the assumptions were. It was an increase in interest rates. That's the contributions the board has made. And what boards in the past has started doing all the way back, the first time we changed the policy was 1997. And before that, if you were a person that had 25 years of retirement system or eligibility somewhere else and you came to work at Dare County and retired after 5 years, you were eligible for that benefit. And we slowly, I think 3 different times, changed that policy to limit that liability, and that's starting to flow through the population. There's not many people left that are grandfathered with that benefit from before June 19th, 1997.
Some school personnel type stuff.
Right. Yeah. Then the purpose of this slide is if you add up the general fund and all the special revenue funds, I've never seen anything like it. We've got $192 million of fund balances, but over on the right-hand column, I've never seen this happen to this degree before. 74 million of that is waiting to be spent. For example, the general fund, there's 2.2 million of purchase orders that we're waiting on stuff to come that we didn't pay by the end of June 30th. Beach Nourishment's just money being saved to pay for debt service and future projects. There's 31 million in capital projects. It's all unspent debt proceeds for, at the end of June, it was almost all Beach Nourishment projects. Capital, another
The
2.3.
31 is the unspent beach nourishment projects.
Almost all of it.
Okay,
Almost all. There was
Yeah.
a little bit of animal shelter.
sure.
Um,
Okay.
2.3 million in POs we're waiting on in capital investment. Inlet maintenance, 15 million. That's the state dredge loan. That's going to sit there until the loan is forgiven over time. Community housing, you've set aside 10.5 million for, most of that's for the Woodward Cooper project. CD and sanitation, almost $1 million in there. Home health and hospice, 2.5. 2.2 in foster care and our COVID relief fund, which we're waiting to close out. And then 2.2, or just right around 2 million, that was in the school capital projects fund that wasn't spent yet. Then what happened during the year, and this is just that operating fund, the 10 fund budget, the operating expenses. You had 118, almost 119 million of revenue because your revenues were 6.7 million over budget. Expenditures were down because they were 89, almost 90 million. And you look at those two numbers, but what happened was we moved 7.2 million of law enforcement and public safety salaries over to the American Rescue Plan grant and let that grant pay for those, which was the cleanest eligible use. And then we were 11, even after that, 11.9 million under budget on expenditures.
Dave, on a previous slide, we said that the general fund 10 was 30 unassigned balance, 34.5% of revenue. Is the revenue that you're talking about the 119 million on this page?
Yes.
So the math would translate to just over $40 million, correct?
Right.
Okay.
41, right.
Just want to make sure I had those right. Thank you.
That's right. Then let's see. The other uses in your general fund, you normally, the 10,425,000 is your normal contribution to capital every year. You moved 350,000 over to inlet maintenance and to law enforcement officer special separation allowance. You've reserved, or you moved over to the new fund, the 10.5 million for housing. You put in another 1.5 million in the irrevocable trust. So as Bob said, we added 7.3 million during the year. Revenues, as I said, you were 6.7 million over budget. Property tax base growth was at 1. Our budget assumed a half. Article 30, the sales tax, one was up almost 11, one was up 13, occupancy tax 7.5. And for the 22 budget, we were kind of lost as to what to do. So we based that on, I think it was 3% annual growth from 2019. ABC profits were way up. Registered deeds and building permits were just way up again. And that 6.7 million over is we booked an unrealized investment portfolio loss. When interest rates went up, prices go down, and governments have to book that unrealized loss or gain every year. So there's a $3.1 million loss, unrealized loss on the investment portfolio. So the good news is it's an artificial loss in 22. It's an artificial gain in 23. So we started July 1st of 22, fiscal 23, with a $3.1 million gain. As you can tell, I'm not a fan. Expenditures were $11.9 million under budget. And if you needed anything to support your decisions on the salary studies, just salaries and fringes from turnover were 5.1 million under budget. And here's department numbers. I can tell you from the report that these are just full-time positions, but if a position turned over more than once during the year, it counted it. But these are some pretty impressive percentages.
Those are stunning. When I looked at the first two, Dave, fast food restaurant managers, when I was working in fast food business, the management, like manager, assistant manager, were in the 30 and 40% range, which were extremely high. Looking at health careers at the county and facilities maintenance at the county, they're stunning to me. I was hoping to see 6, 5, 7,
Right, which would be normal.
34 and 32. Wow.
Are those going to be
Interesting to
consistent
see
going forward?
what we have
We're not
next
gonna be
year on
things-
this.
okay.
Because we're starting, we think, and we only have a month to go on. But we're starting to see some stabilization, we think, in these turnover numbers, and we'll just have to see how the year plays out. But
Yeah,
So-
I had no idea.
You know-
I mean, I knew we had turnover. I just never thought it was at this level. It was stunning to me when I
a few
saw
weeks
that.
ago, the sheriff had all of his positions filled for the first time in a long time,
Yeah.
for example. So we hope that with what you all did with the salary study, the implementation of that through the year, that pays dividends for us.
Where does EMS fall in these categories?
Clearly, it's less than 9%.
Less than 9. If I'm recalling correctly, 7, around 7.
Wow, that's good.
That's great.
Yeah, that's really
We're
good.
starting to fill the places that we've had open.
I'm looking at
planned.
Chief Collins back there. That's really good, Chief.
So we'll see. Next year, it'll be interesting to see how it compares with what you
Yeah.
have in front of you.
Yeah,
Because these are the worst of the numbers we've had in my tenure.
you gotta be, had to be, Bobby, had to be. All right, sorry, Dave.
No, no problem. And then the rest of what went on, and this counts for 11 out of 11.9. As I said, you had 2.2 million of unfulfilled purchase orders. We'd ordered stuff and not received it. 2.4 of operating expenses. And I remember, especially for human services and parks and rec, the year went back to July
I'm sorry,
1st
Dave,
of
just so I understand.
2021.
The 2.2 million unfilled, you mean the suppliers that we ordered from simply don't have?
An ambulance is 18 months to get an ambulance from when you order it. Right, Jenny?
Yeah, we're going to see that in the consent.
24 months.
I was just, I thought that's what that said, and I wanted to make sure I understood it
Garbage
correctly.
trucks.
Yeah, I
same
see what
way.
you're
All
saying.
those things. We've got POs from the last fiscal year sitting there.
Are there major purchases in that 2.2?
Yeah.
Like, give me an example.
600,
Truck, you said?
Garbage trucks.
687,000.
That 2.2 is just operating items.
Yeah.
It's not
Not the-
vehicles
not
and
capital.
equipment.
Yeah.
I mean, that shows the extent of the issue.
What's that again, Dave?
That's
Say-
just operating items.
Right.
You know, in the operating budget. It doesn't include any vehicles. or
Well, that's the
equipment.
next line though. It says 2.4 million operating expenses. You're saying they're both operating expenses?
Those were the operating expenses under budget.
Oh, I'm
after
sorry.
the
Okay, yep,
2.2.
yep. Okay, I got it. Sorry, Dave.
But as I said, the year went back to July 1st of 21. So like Parks and Rec and Health, COVID had an effect on those numbers because of programs. And then 1.3 million we show as indirect costs for what the county spends on school resource officers and school nurses. Just items to budget or to watch that we noticed in the audit report. C&D landfill budget and fund balance, as we showed you in adopting this year, we've got to watch that so that fund balance still grows because of the closure and post-closure liability. The sanitation fund, if you look at that statement specifically, it shows that we added $190,000 to the fund balance at the same time we asked you, and you did raise the tax rate on that fund. But as an example of what we were just talking about, there were $687,000 of garbage trucks that weren't delivered. So if you take that into account, sanitation really lost $500,000 in 22.
Just the fact that we're generating a ton of trash, or our visitors are.
It was tipping
Well,
fees, yeah.
That's one issue, but the other issue is we had such a large fund balance, and we've talked about this just about every budget for the last 5 or 6 years. We had such a large fund balance, we didn't raise the rates to correspond with the cost because we had more fund balance than we need. So we paid the fund balance down and kept the rate the same. Well, we're getting down now where we're at a more normal fund balance. And so now we've got to get the rates. The cost, we're still running a deficit, but the rate will go up in your plan over the next several years, and those lines will cross and it'll hopefully balance out. What Dave's telling you is we got to keep an eye on that to make sure what we've done with the actuaries, in fact, is what happens so that we don't get behind and have to, we're trying not to do a big rate increase. We're trying to do it incrementally over time.
Bob, is that something we should look at in the next fiscal year to maybe take a little stab at some of that?
Actually, you have done that.
I know we have, but it was
So
something we-
it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. What we got to do is keep monitoring it to make sure, that 500,000 deficit this year should be something less than that next year, and so on till it gets to be zero. If we find that deficit's not reducing like we planned, or it's increasing, then we've got to go back and look at rates to make up that difference.
Bobby, that 687,000 of trucks not delivered, that money isn't set aside to pay for those when they
They're
come?
paid for, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is technically what happens when you have a PO that's outstanding on the last day of the year in your budget ordinance. It and the budget for it gets reinstated in the following year. So the budget's there again. It's just, you're using those savings from the prior year because you didn't spend the money in the prior year.
Most savings that you get at the end of the year go into the fund balance. If you get to the end of the year, you hadn't spent all the money, it goes in the fund balance. If you have a PO on something, then you can carry that over. Technically doesn't go back in the fund balance.
Prevents it
It's
from
set
going into the
aside
pot.
It's still, the money's still earmarked for that.
Yes,
for
sir.
that thing, and it's added to your next year's budget.
Yeah, an accrual counting, Steve, you'd set up an accrual and it would be recorded in the
Right.
proper year, and then you reverse it for cash flow purposes in the following year. Go ahead, Dave.
Just on those trucks,
It's all part
do we have a
of government
timeline,
accounting
or are
standards.
we kind of held hostage by?
I think it's more of the hostage situation.
Right.
I guess this is an accounting deal, but what I'm kind of wrestling with a little bit here is, it said we added $190,000 of fund balance, but we've got 687,000 of trucks not delivered. If the 687,000 is already set aside and ready to pay for the trucks when they're delivered, and we've got added $190,000 of fund balance, why are we concerned about the lines not crossing or trying to add to the, go up?
Two different things. we have a rate in the sanitation fund that pays the cost of sanitation. It does not come out of the general fund.
Right.
Okay, so it's supposed to, if it costs you $1 million, you're supposed to have $1 million in revenues, in sanitation revenues.
Right.
Well, it cost us $1 million and we only had, I'll make up a number, 800,000 in revenues. Well, rather than raise the rate to make up that 200,000, we spent down this large fund balance that we had to make up the difference. Well, now we're getting to the point where we don't have that large fund balance to make up that difference. And so we were projecting out that in 5 years, we were going to have a problem. So 5 years early, we started raising the rate. So in 5 years, that revenue will equal that cost based on what the actuaries told Dave.
Gotcha. But we exceeded that this year by 190,000 and it increased the fund balance?
Well, when you
Artificially.
artificially, but if you take out the designated part of that fund balance, we're actually at a deficit of 500,000.
Okay.
How many vehicles does that represent?
It's 3 or 4, isn't it?
Yes,
I was
they're
gonna say
roughly
three. I think
three.
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 I think three.
But they're state of the art. I mean, the newer trucks, they're increasing the efficiency. Some of these older trucks are breaking down and it kind of cumbersome, but these new trucks they zip.
Yeah. We got some held together with rubber bands and baling wire. I'm just telling you.
I assume these new ones don't leak.
All trucks leak.
They're quiet.
Yeah.
Quieter.
As far as you know.
Who said that?
You will know as well.
And then the final thing is the water fund. As I said, the lease thing had more effect in the water fund than anywhere else, but no negative financial effects really. And the one thing I wanted you to note is this, the water fund had quite a bit of a share of the salary study cost. And we'd projected out, the rate model projected out a 2% rate increase every year for the next 5. That first 2 will probably have to be 3. We're going to redo the rate model with the new numbers when you'll see that in the budget. And that's it for, well, I will say the last page is just a reference that Bob went through the different page numbers. And I agree, Bob, my favorite section is the statistical section. You can go in and find 10 years worth of data. If you want to see EMS calls for the last 10 years, it's in there. Just about everything.
Dave, in the 2-watch, one here that said 2-watch, all of those are self-sustaining funds.
Yes, sir.
The CD, sanitation, and water are all
Special revenue.
Special revenue. Yeah.
And all this was similar to what we just described in sanitation. We have to keep an eye that
Exactly.
we keep those balanced.
Gotcha.
So can I add a couple other comments?
Absolutely, Bob.
So I think, there's been a good discussion about, the spending and how much we increased our fund balance and we're still waiting to spend some of that money out. In my 43 years of working with governmental accounting, I mean, that's always been kind of my observation of the charge that you all have. Unlike in a for-profit business where we are there to make net income for the owners or the shareholders, whatever it is, in county government or just in government anyway, you still have to have good fiscal spending to have the cash and the resources for future spending purposes. So it's always a planned thing. I think in North Carolina, what's always made us one of the strongest governmental states as far as the bond rating companies go, and Dave's told you, shared with him what Dare County's is because we have to have balanced budgets. There are other states that their governments don't even have to have a balanced budget, which is kind of crazy in my mind. But having a balanced budget forces you to look at what your resources are and what your planned expenditures are. You don't have but so many ways that you can actually raise revenue. And we know what that is. Most of the time, that's our property tax rates. But yet we feel the external pressures from our citizens, and rightfully so, to keep our property tax rates as low as possible. So, that playing that yin and the yang between here's what we plan to spend, where is it going to come from? And then we start listing all of our revenue sources. And when you get through all of the grants and the federal monies and the state monies and everything else, and the last variable is property tax, and back into it and figure out what your rate is, then that's where you are with kind of your balanced budget. You all have seen many, many years where we've had to appropriate fund balance to balance our budget So we have planned expenditures of, say, $100. We have expected revenues of $80. Where's the shortfall coming from? So we say we're going to appropriate fund balance. Well, that's spending from our savings account is what that's doing. That's spending from prior years' good stewardship of where we were able to build fund balance. And that either happened because you spent less than what you thought you were going to spend, or you had a windfall. You got more money than what you expected to get, because it's not a perfect world. I mean, a budget is just that, it's an estimate. And so that's what we're doing. So, you know, I think you folks are to be commended for what you've done to get your fund balance where it is, and now be in a good position to spend money in the future for all these things we have to do. And as you all know far better than I do, I mean, Dare County has unique expenditures beyond what most governments do with dredging issues and all the other things that you have. So, you know, you have to use your resources for those types of things. One quick thing on the leases, you know, kind of an analogy on the leases is in the past where we've had operating leases, and let's say it's $100 a month lease for whatever it is, the effect on your income statement, the way you used to account for leases, the way it is now, I think is going to be pretty insignificant. You know, the question was what really is this all about? Well, in the past, if we had a $100 a month lease, then it hit our income statement as a $100 expenditure. Now what we've had to do is we've had to take that lease agreement, we've had to present value capitalize that future obligation and book a intangible asset called right to use asset. But we are amortizing that asset. And then we had to reduce the debt, and then we had to reduce it and also book debt. So the amortization on this right to use asset plus the interest portion of the debt, in essence, kind of offsets the old way of looking at it as just paying $100 a month lease expense.
A
There's
long
somewhere in there
walk
there's
for a
tiny-
very short drink, gentlemen. A long walk for a very short drink.
Yeah, well, and two more comments. The comparisons, make a note. I know you don't have the financial statements, but page 215 gives you, I think, that page that you were looking at, comparing retail sales and all that. That's a good look. So a couple of slides before and after that. And it's not too late for you to become a CPA. So we would love to have you join our ranks.
Bob,
My application's in the mail, Bob.
shameless. Bob, just a question regarding the leases. And I'm sure there's somebody somewhere that understands this and there's a good reason for it. But what in the world, when something is working, and why change it to something different just for the sake of changing it to something different? What if there's no net effect on it? Why change it?
I'm not sure what Dave's opinion is on this, but he and I have talked about it a lot over all these many, many years that he and I have known each other. And we've sat down and talked through accounting standards and changes. But sometimes I think there's just some folks that sit around in rooms that maybe are bored, and they just try to come up with things like this to figure out how to make our world more complicated.
Every
To
once
your
in a
point,
while, Wally, you'll hear the truth. And what you just heard is the truth.
Yeah.
Okay?
But I say my master's thesis is why no leases should have been ever capitalized.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, but it is what it is. and
Wally, there's a
that's the
group
rules
of
we have to
men
play by.
that sit on the GASB, the Government Accounting Standards Board, and they need things to do to justify being on the Government Accounting
It just
Standards
don't
Board.
make sense.
That's correct. All right.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Really good.
Bob, I had to tease my fellow commissioner here. I said, it's the same thing as being in the restaurant business. You got a product that's selling like hotcakes and all of a sudden he changes the menu. What else we got, gentlemen?
That's it.
Questions?
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you so much, Bob.
Thanks,
We
Bob.
Appreciate you.
Yep, appreciate
You're very
it,
welcome.
Dave. Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Same to you all.
County manager?
Chairman, that brings us to item 7 on the agenda. This is a review of the 2023-24 grant application from the Economic Improvement Council. And before you ask me the same question that you ask me every year when this comes up, this is not something that you take action on. This is simply what they plan to do with the funds that they get. If you have any comments, go on the website, you can send them your comments, but beyond that, we have no control or no issues. Usually the gentleman comes and spends some time presenting it. There was really kind of no reason for that. But again, we are required to present it to you to give you the opportunity to comment. So
This is another one of those high-efficiency government processes that we all support and defend.
Do we have to take any action on?
you don't take any action. So
No action is required.
it's now been presented to you all.
Thank you.
Again, you can go on our website and read it. If you have comments, it'll tell you where to make the comments. Unless you have questions, I'll move on to the next.
Forget.
Item 8 is the Dare County Coastal Storm Mitigation Grant Contract, and Dustin's here to tell you about that one.
Morning, Dustin.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the board.
Morning.
During the November 7th meeting, you all adopted a resolution approving the county to receive some grant funds from the Coastal Storm Damage Mitigation Grant Fund pool. What's before you today is the contracts between the county and NCDEQ for each one of those projects. That would be Buxton, Avon, and the Towns projects as they're related to beach nourishment. One item to note is that the Avon contract will be reduced from the original amount of $5,576,639 to $4,714,231.60. This reduction in money more accurately reflects the eligible expenses associated with the Avon project.
And the $900,000 difference is,
It's related to when the effective date of when the expenses became eligible. July 9th was that particular date, so anything before then that we paid for no longer was eligible.
so then that the expenses, the 900,000 will be paid for by,
Through the Beach Nourishment Fund, I believe. Yes, sir.
We didn't
okay,
get
I was just,
reimbursed for those. Yeah.
say again,
We didn't get reimbursed for those.
that's all I was doing, closing the loop. Okay.
We got started early and the end product was a very
Did well,
successful
yes, sir.
program, but it came at its small cost,
Right. Yes,
slight
sir.
cost.
Okay.
I don't want to be callous about 900,000, but
Right.
I'll take the early bird stuff. Yeah.
Oh, man, if
So
you're being Stanny, it's
what's in front of you all
change.
today are the actual contract agreements between the county and NCDEQ. And the action I would like for you all to take is to approve the contracts from NCDEQ and authorize the county manager to sign each contract.
I make the motion to approve the contracts to NCDEQ and authorize county manager to sign each contract.
All right, there's a motion on the floor by Commissioner House. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Ross. Any further discussion? Hearing none, then those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pose like sign. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Dustin.
Thank you, Dustin.
Chairman, item 9 on the agenda is an NCDOT resolution for the Airport Road multi-use path, and Martin Grover's here for that one.
Barton, welcome. Good
Morning,
morning.
Happy New Year. So DOT is offering for the first time a feasibility study grant, and that will involve a consultant holding public meetings, looking at designs, et cetera. And so it's called a feasibility study grant for paved trails and sidewalks. You all have talked a lot about that airport road. You all had a special meeting on it. So I was thinking that would be the ideal fit for this grant. As part of the application process, oh, by the way, there is no match required. DOT actually contracts with the consultant themselves, and the consultant then works with us. But as part of the application, a resolution is required to be passed by the board commissioners. So that is what I'm asking here today.
County Manager, would you read that, please?
Sure. This is a resolution in support of the North Carolina Department of Transportation Integrated Mobility Division Paved Trails and Sidewalk Feasibility Study Grant application for Airport Road on Roanoke Island. Whereas the North Carolina Department of Transportation Integrated Mobility Division offers a feasibility study grant for paved trails and sidewalks. And whereas a pathway alongside Airport Road on Roanoke Island has been recommended in the Albemarle Regional Bicycle Plan and the 2015 Dare County Comprehensive Transportation Plan. And whereas the Dare County Board of Commissioners previously passed a resolution in 2019 in support of including construction of a multi-use path alongside Airport Road in future planning documents. And whereas the Dare County Board of Commissioners held a special meeting on August 11, 2022 to receive public comment and discuss a multi-use path on Airport Road. And whereas the Dare County Board of Commissioners supports multi-use pathways as a way of enhancing public safety and providing much needed infrastructure for the community. Now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Commissioners of Dare County, North Carolina hereby adopts the following resolution for the NCDOT Integrated Mobility Division to consider the Dare County Feasibility Study Grant application for Airport Road this third day of January 2023.
Move to approve.
There's a motion on the floor by the vice chairman to approve the resolution as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner House. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, Bart.
Item 10 is a Division of Coastal Management Local Planning and Management Grant Program, and Barton has that one as well.
So, yeah, as Bobby said, is a DCM Local Planning and Management Grant Program. This year, the focus was on beach-related projects. The project I'm looking to apply for, and DEQ has indicated they would fund this project already, is to essentially resurvey the Rodanthe Beach. We have a feasibility study from back in 2013. Obviously, the beach does look a little different since 2013. So we would have a consultant or engineer go out there, resurvey the beach, get estimated volumes that are getting lost per year and the erosion rate. And then with that, give you all an estimated cost if we wanted to, if there was to move forward with a Rodanthe Beach Nourishment Project, or how much that would cost. And also how much it would cost to maintain each 5 years, just to give you all some more information about what that cost is.
Great.
What's the timing on this study? Barton?
It
You
was
know?
6 months. So
So if we approve today, sometime before the end of summer?
yes.
Okay.
It's all part of the process.
Yeah, like you all talked about, permitting takes a while. Even this takes 6 months just for them to
Part
get
of
out
that,
survey and do
24
bathymetric
months.
data.
Yep.
So
So for our meeting down in Rodanthe on the 18th, Dave and I have tried to cobble together a model and put some numbers to it so we can give the folks that we're talking to some idea of what we're looking at, what the obstacles are, those kinds of things. We obviously won't have these real numbers by the 18th. But we hope, that
A good ballpark.
we'll have a good ballpark number. There's either going to be good news or bad. Either we're going to be off by too high or we're going to be off by too low. I think we'd be lucky if we hit it right on the dot. But we do have, if we're going to plan going forward, and if we do have any intention down the road of doing something there, or as we're trying to prioritize projects, we have to know scale to set those priorities, then this is something that we need, and this opportunity for us to get this done, and DCM is willing to help us do it. So that's why it's on here.
And is this a match grant?
yes, so it's 75-25. So the total cost will be around 33,000, 34,000, and the state will provide 25,000.
And the balance, our share, comes out of the beach nourishment.
Right,
Yeah, that's fine.
right.
It's just one little small step,
Yep.
just to take a look and see what the costs are.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the application budget amendment and authorize the county manager to enter into a contract with DEQ?
So
Right here, yep.
Okay, I set
Second.
double motions here by Commissioner House and Count. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by the vice chairman. Any further comments? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thanks again, Mark.
Thank you. And like I said, it's been indicated that we will receive the grant. So I would expect to have a grant contract in front of you all next month.
Super.
Barton, since you're up here, I got a question to ask you. So down Canadian Hole.
Yep.
Heading into Buxton, you have the couple parking lots there. Then it starts tapering off and the shoreline goes back towards the road. Severe erosion rate. This is on the sound side.
Yep.
Is there any grant or something we can get to somehow look at maybe even not necessarily bulkheading or some kind of stormwater mitigation, sort of like they did on Moore Shore Road in Kitty Hawk, to keep that wave action from going up there?
So there are grants out there. We've been looking, so the federal government, Army Corps has funds for dredging Avon. We don't have a disposal area for that material. And so DOT has been kind of working with us. They've reached out to DEQ about actually placing that material from Avon Harbor alongside Canadian Hole haulover area to kind of beneficial reuse, to have more protection. I was doing like a little bit of beach nourishment, maybe a little dune building.
Right.
So they're looking at getting a permit for that area. There's a cost related to trucking. We could get a cost share from the state for that, but that is something I will probably be bringing up to you all whenever we DOT gets a meeting set up with the DEQ and all the other agencies to see if it's a feasible project to place that material. But essentially doing beach nourishment on the sound side, where you have those electrical poles in the water, you got the roads not very far away from the water, and then we have our new water line. So
It's
would be
become a
beneficial reuse.
recreational, there's a recreational
and then obviously
demand there
big
the
time.
past 2 years. It's
ton
been,
of
And it's
recreational down there.
eroded in the last 2 years. I bet, what, 10, 15 feet at
it's
least?
significant. It's off to the naked eye, yeah.
We have received some emails about Soundside beach nourishment and some questions about what is our plan. Just for the people that are listening, this is an area where there's no residents. We don't do beach nourishment on the Sound side normally because unlike on the ocean front, an individual property owner has the ability to protect their property and prevent erosion on the Sound side that an oceanfront property owner doesn't have. The scale is, 100 times larger. And so we don't do that. And if residents have issues with erosion on their property, then there are easy permits to get to solve those problems. And that's how it's done pretty much countywide. So just if you get,
They're not that costly.
in an area like this where there is no private property owner and it's a recreational area, then we'll work with DCM, the Park Service, and the players to try to do something. And that's an important area too, because while we always focus on erosion from the ocean side getting the road, that's an area where erosion from the Sound side can also undermine the road. When we have these west winds like we've had for the last 2 or 3 weeks, if we had some more days of that, then we're going to have problems in those areas. And so this is something that we would look at just to preserve the transportation corridor.
Barton, while you're up here, the FEMA housing grant, is there a status?
So the FEMA for Florence and Michael, those were those 31 homes that were awarded, I guess, a little over a
Yes, sir. Yeah.
year now. The state has hired a contractor, and he is actually submitting building plans right now. So the initial probably 5 houses will start getting elevated mid-January. So he's going to try to finish them before the summer. He thinks he can get each one done within like 60 days. So hopefully we'll have 30 new elevated house, again, all federal funds, no Dare County funds, hopefully by this summer.
This countywide?
Yep.
Yep.
And we still have some other grant applications out there and some other like projects, but yeah, this for the Florence and Michael. I think we got 4.2 million, I think, was the total from
I believe that,
FEMA.
yeah. It's,
And so, yep, those are starting. They were obviously over budget. So FEMA, emergency management had to go back to FEMA to get some additional funds because as you all know, inflation and construction costs have gone up, but they don't seem like that would be an issue. So they'll be, I talked to someone last week. I think he said he had to move out of his house on January 19th. So they're finally getting going and it sounds like the contractor's trying to move fast.
good. Hopefully we get exponential from here on
Yep,
out.
so
We'll
y'all should
see.
There's
Yep.
some houses in Kitty Hawk, Roanoke Island, Mans Harbor, a lot down in Hatteras. They should start seeing.
Are these the
getting
cost
elevated.
share ones or the? or
These
the
are
full
100%.
grant?
These are
federal
100% federal. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good deal. Thank you, Barton.
Thank you all.
That brings us to item 12, and this is the Dare County Marine Sand Search Investigation and Borrow Area Design. And Dustin.
Nope.
You missed-
Number 11.
missed number
Oh, 11, I'm sorry. Budget amendment for Dare County Schools local current expense. Dave's here for that one.
I told the school system interim finance director that I would handle this. And what we do every year when we calculate the school funding is use their best estimate, what they've been told to expect out of the state budget. So for this fiscal year, in the calculation, we used a state COLA of 2%. The actual that the state adopted later in their budget was 4%. The other item was the employer retirement rate. We used 24.19% and the actual came in at 24.5%. So between those two items, we went back and redid the per pupil calculation. I verified everything in it is correct. And it's an additional $199,775. And you've got a budget amendment included for that amount and the source which used appropriated fund balance.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion's on the floor by Commissioner House, been seconded by Commissioner Bateman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
All right, now we're on item 12.
You doggone right we are.
He likes his geology stuff.
This is the Dare County Marine Sand Search Investigation and Bar A Design, and Dustin's here for that.
Item 12 is directly related to item 8 that I was up here just previously for. The towns were awarded $1 million through the Coastal Storm Damage Mitigation Grant Pool. That $1 million is set aside or is geared towards doing a future marine sand search investigation and borrow area design. And in a nutshell, it's going to allow the county and our consultants to go out and try to identify future borrow areas so we can continue to nourish the beaches in the northern project area. What's before you is the budget amendment as well as the proposal through Coastal Protection Engineering. CP is the consultant that we utilize for the northern projects. A brief summary of what Coastal Protection Engineering's proposal is written in the description. The highlights are it's a 2-year project not to exceed $2 million. That'll be broken into 3 tasks. Task 1 and 2 will be conducted in year 1. It'll include the initial surveys, the vibrocore samples, and a geotechnical analysis. Task 3 to be conducted in year 2 will include a final geotechnical report, analysis, and recommendation. What I'd like for you all to do today is to approve the budget amendment and proposal and authorize the county manager to sign the proposal.
Pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve.
Yeah.
There's a motion on
Second.
the floor to approve by Commissioner Bateman. It's been seconded by Commissioner Couch. Any further questions?
I just want to clarify, the appropriated fund balance will be $1 million from our general fund unassigned balance. Dave, where's Dave?
That's out of the beach nourishment.
Out of the
fund.
beach nourishment.
For its nourishment,
Yeah.
that's, okay, that was a question I was looking. I saw appropriated fund balance. I thought it was general fund, but clearly I'm wrong. Beach
Get
nourishment,
you
got
some
it.
information. We believe we have sand in our borrow sources to do our next project 5 years from now
In the current book.
in the current.
Yeah,
borrow.
that was my question I was going to ask Dustin.
And the issue for me was, what are we going to do after that? Do we
Right.
still have enough sand? How long out do we go? And rather than waiting until, we're ready to go and we don't have any sand, let's go ahead and identify
Sure.
places where we can go, have that
Sure.
on board so that when we get to those next projects, we just seamlessly move into them. We know where we're getting permits from, all that stuff. And so that's why they're doing this now. We've had some discussions about where to look, about how far away, to try to contain costs and all that stuff. And so they're going to plug all that into what they're doing. So that's what this is for. It's sort of a long-term plan for sand sources for beach nourishment in the northern areas. And we're going to do a similar thing in the southern areas as well, but it's not a part of this.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor and it's been seconded. Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, Dustin.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And then item 13 is the EMS Station 1 Capital Project Ordinance and Architect Contract Amendment, and Dustin has that as well.
Item 13. So as we were designing and going through the process for KDH EMS Station 1, we had the design completed and we had one final meeting with the town of Kill Devil Hills just to reassure that everything fit their needs as well as ours. And they brought up the suggestion of they would like to have the station flip-flopped. Originally, the EMS portion was on the north side of the building of the facility and KDH's portion was on the southern side. And they brought up the point that if they were ever to do future expansion, it would be more efficient and make more sense if their portion of the building was closer to their existing facilities. So they had asked us, the county and the architects, to go back and redesign the station to show that that's what the buildable plan was. So what's before you today is the capital project ordinance and the contract amendment from the architect to do that, as well as some additional travel expenses from the architect to do printing. And
Why do we have to pay for that?
Yeah.
well, it's
Bobby's going to tell
yeah,
us.
it won't be.
Two things. One is, it wasn't as simply as just taking the plan and flipping it. When you flipped it like that, it changed the stormwater, the location of the ditches, the location of the drain. So there was a lot of design work that had to
Mechanicals.
go back in
That's
to,
correct.
to do all that.
I'm looking at the chief. I'm looking for a nod of the head. I'm okay with this.
She better not. Yeah, it's no issue from our perspective.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah, it makes some sense from their perspective. But so there was a cost there. In terms of us paying for it, we're going to work with Kill Devil Hills. Either they'll pay for it because it was their change request. What we've done in the agreement that's floating around between us is we basically apportioned the cost based on the square footage of what's being used by each party. We're looking to see if this washes out in that square footage calculation or whether there needs to be a 61,000 tack on to that. If there is, then that's what we'll do in that agreement. So,
That's fine.
okay.
The one effect we've had is, or this has had, is on schedule. They were originally scheduled to bid the project in December. Originally, that got pushed back to January 10th. Then Barnhill, because of their communications with their subcontract bidders, asked to push it back to January 24th. So what that's done for the final contract approval for the GMP and for the local government commission, instead of going in February, we're going to have to go in April. So
Pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve the
Motion
capital.
on the floor by Commissioner House to approve.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Bateman and Ross. Further discussion. So we're moving the timeline back to April.
Yep.
And that is, what will that get us in April?
You know, honestly, I had a talk with the underwriter last week. It might get us lower interest rates the way things have been moving. So,
Well, that's good.
you know,
Interesting, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Timeline for demolition and all that stuff. What do we have to do once this is okayed and done in April?
the demo would be in their GMP.
Yes, sir.
right?
So
Would it be in the, okay.
The demo at the EMS station will be at the end of the project because we're going to operate until we
Right, I
get the new one
understand.
built.
But demolition of the building that's on the site.
I'm talking about
Oh,
demolition
of
of
the
the site,
yeah.
not their building.
Yeah.
They haven't decided what they're gonna do with that building yet,
Right.
to my knowledge.
And so the demolition will be part of the GMP and they'll, just like we did over here, we didn't do it early. We waited and did it all in one
Right, I
go.
understand.
But we have gone ahead and had the hazardous material
we have the
study
lead paint
done
and
for the
asbestos study.
demolition.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So that's all already been
So-
taken care of.
Yeah, so we're ready to do it. It's just a matter of when do they fit it
There
in
was some
there.
hazardous.
Well, you have to do the study to see if there
That's,
is.
okay, that's what I thought. All right.
Okay.
Only thing I'd think of hazardous at Maco's is maybe a grease pit. I don't know, but anyhow, this is good. We're moving forward. Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Look, pose like sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
That brings you to your consent agenda. On the consent agenda, you have the approval of the minutes from December 5th. You have the Baldwin Aviation Safety Management System contract. You have a mutual aid agreement for fuel pump use by outside entities, tax collector's report, the Stumpy Point disposal site modifications, budget amendment, and a budget amendment for the coronavirus relief for the transportation department.
Move to adopt.
So motion on the floor by
Second.
Commissioner House to adopt the consent agenda as presented. I believe, was it you, Commissioner Ross?
Yes, sir.
Seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous.
That will bring you to your board appointments. Your first is your Stumpy Point Community Center Board, the terms of Johnny Midget, Tammy Perry, Inscore, Naomi Midget, Jeff Griffith have expired. All four wish to be reappointed.
Move to reappoint.
Motion on the floor by Vice Chairman, second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner House. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Next is the Regional East Albemarle Regional Library Board. All members of the Regional Library Board have moved out of the area. Mary Lou Hofford, a member of the Dare County Library Board, wishes to serve on the regional board.
Pleasure of the board.
So moved.
Commissioner Ross
I'll
made a
second.
motion, it's been seconded by Commissioner Bateman. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous.
So we have 2 remaining vacancies on that board.
Your third is your Older Adult Services Advisory Council. Apollonia Bella Reber has resigned, and the council recommends Dawn Berg to complete her term and Beulah Ashley to fill the council's vacancy.
Move to appoint Don Berg and to complete her term, and Beulah Ashby to fill the vacancy.
There's a motion by Vice Chairman,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Bateman. Any further discussion?
I did have a question on
Yes, sir.
this. Probably a year ago, guys, if you recall, Commissioner Tobin, unfortunately, is not with us today, but he serves on this board and had a significant issue where people were being held personally liable for some things, and it was really impeding their ability to serve on this board. I remember making a note a year ago saying, this is really not good, and we needed some follow-up action. Bobby, do you recall that issue or the conflict that the board members were seeing from some new state requirement? I don't remember the details. I just
I
remember
remember-
talking to Jim and him saying, yes, this is
I
a
remember the
big
issue, but I'm
problem.
not sure I remember it as being liability. There was some training
CE.
issues.
There was some
and
training,
and
yeah.
things
There
that
was
they had to
training.
do prior to being appointed. And they were like, how are we going to, if we don't know if we're going to get appointed, how do we do the training? They had the cart before the horse.
No, that was something
I'll
else.
follow
I
up and
think it's
find
the
out.
nursing home advisory
That might be
board.
the nursing home.
Yeah, that's a
advisory
nursing
council.
home.
I think that was a
Sorry.
different.
I've
Yeah.
confused the two, excuse me. Sorry, yeah, okay, no questions then.
Pretty sure.
All right, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Fourth is your commission for working watermen. The terms of Jamie Ribel, Joe Wilson, Dewey Himmelwright, and Steve House expire this month. All four wish to be reappointed.
Motion reappoint.
Motion by Commissioner Bateman to reappoint all 4.
Second, yeah.
Seconded by Commissioner Ross. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous.
And finally, is your airport authority. William Pope is no longer serving on the airport authority, and James R. Kinney is recommended to complete his term.
Move to appoint Mr. Kenny, please.
There's a motion on the floor by Commissioner Couch. It has been seconded by the Vice Chairman. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous.
And then your upcoming boards and committees. In February, you have 2 terms expiring on the Aging Advisory Council and 2 terms expiring on the Senior Tar Heel Legislature delegates. In March, you have none. And then in April, the Mans Harbor Marine Commission has 4 terms expiring. And with that, that would be your agenda, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, County Manager. That brings us to item 16, Commissioner's business and County Manager's business. So I would like to ask Commissioner Bateman if he would kick that off for us today.
Yeah, I would. I had first of all, Happy New Year to everybody. I'd like to highlight, and do a spotlight on a guy named John Kane. He did a fundraiser for the Beach Food Pantry. And what my understanding was, they raised $14,000. It was a big effort. It was a rainy day, bad day to be out and doing anything for the public, but he did and did an excellent job. And other than that, I'm just glad to be here.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Couch?
Yeah, just, I continue to marvel at the attraction we have for people. I mean, we take for granted living in such a beautiful place, paradise. Whenever I wanted to take a vacation back in my days when I was working at my father's filling station, he would always say, "You already live in paradise. What do you need a vacation for?" But evidently,
He was referring to Hatteras.
he was a
Village,
retired
yes.
Army colonel. He put a
Okay.
shovel in my hand when I was 12.
Just making sure.
Yeah. But we've had a lot of people down there, and they, despite the weather, as Dorothy was referencing, the alerts went out that, you've got a major system that's impacting the entire country from start to finish. You pay attention to the weather forecast, and we had just under 4 feet of inundation from the sound side. But yet, I mean, the traffic just going through there, if the alerts are going out, let's pay attention to them. I know some people that are coming down to check on their houses, and yes, we had holiday visitation, but we're doing our job, and it's not our fault if somebody puts their brand new Volvo into 4 foot of salt water. Because we had there's a number of tow trucks operating in and out of there. It's just an observation. I do want to reference, over the Christmas holidays, we're constantly remembering our loved ones. And I know people on our board all grapple with this from an emotional standpoint. I did want to reference the loss of Deputy Hickman, Steve Hickman. He was a Hatteras native. He was really, he was just a good guy, number one. Number two, he was a good deputy. And, one of the good news, bad news situations is when you're a local deputy and your roots are thick in your area, when you have to pull your aunt or your cousin or your grandmother over for a traffic violation. He was the kind of guy that did do it from just a nice professional standpoint. And he was good at what he did. He he was a family man. He had a servant's heart, just like we recognize Jack Scarber today. Steve was cut out of that same mold. I agree with what Ms. Fagan had to say about Sheriff Dowdy's office. They were very fortunate to have the leadership in there and just the commitment from the personnel. We've got a top-notch, and we're known. People ask me about law enforcement. My wife's from the Charlotte area, so just hate losing the guy. He, despite having a very aggressive form of cancer, he hung in there with his job as long as he could. But he never complained about it. He just it was a health issue that is debilitating, but he just never complained about it. It's just amazing. I hate to lose. He was just a champ. On January 2nd, we lost Jazania. They call her Miss Jazania. It was Jazania O'Neill. There in Red Anthony, she was the owner. She and her late husband Arvil set up North Beach Market and Campground. They had quite a little entrepreneurship going there. Her children are running it now on land that has been in their family for years. But she was also a public servant. She had her hands in everything in the Tri-Villages there. She was on the elections board, served for years, social services board, served for years. She was a history and heritage advocate. She was the daughter of John Allen Midget from the Merlot rescue. Always, had to laugh when they talked about the Merlot rescue, that they're out of the 9 people, 8 of them were midgets, and then there was an O'Neill, but the O'Neill was married to a midget. So the O'Neills and your midgets are 99.99% of the heritage in the Tri-Villages there. Her grandson, actually great grandson, they're very, her Ian O'Neill is our basketball coach down there now and soccer coach. Manio High School and First Flight, they've got some pretty exceptional sports programs. They're good ambassadors for our area statewide. I know because I just got back from the Greensboro area and had been asked about them. The Good Guys versus Cancer has got a lot of statewide, good statewide reputation going. But, Ian's setting a program down there. He's got help. He's got volunteer help. We want to be where the other 2 high schools are here, but also her another great grandson is the point guard there at Manio, a guy named Sam Jenkins. He's grown. He's had exponential growth here lately. He used to be the hardest working guy on the floor because he was in there with a bunch of trees, but now he's become a tree himself. And just her kids are continuing to set, Miss Jazania's kids are continuing to set the bar for just good public service. Last but 2 things. Karen Kraft, Miss Susan Gray, who was the director at the Fessenden Center. Susan was her daughter, Caitlin and Caroline. Were her granddaughters. They're both Grays, And so my heart goes out to the whole Fessenden community family there with the loss of Susan's mother. And then Lovey Selby, I know a lot of you. She's not an island resident, but we claimed her. It was an unexpected passing. She's a longtime fixture there at Bass Nights and just in the Manio community. She was a ton of fun to be around. She called it like she saw it. And so we're gonna be missing these people. And just on a personal note, everybody, I had a very fulfilling, very satisfying holiday season. Lots of family. We saw a lot of unity among the churches down there on the island, all celebrating. Sometimes various denominations have some turf stuff going on, but you can go into about any of the churches down there and you'll see people visiting all the churches there. It's just a really good holiday season. I hope you had the same. Long report, but that's what I got.
Thank you, Commissioner. Danny, I had an inquiry recently, and then I don't know why I hadn't thought about this in the past. Is it the Buxton Station fire where we don't have a yellow blinking light to stop the traffic on 12 coming out of there? Why, we need to reach out to NCDOT. We've got them in Nags Head.
It's also a blind corner there too.
Yeah, it's a blind corner. We got them in Nags Head. We got them in KDH. Why in the world don't we have one in there? Because I had an inquiry about that recently, that somebody was coming through and they got in a situation where it could not have been pretty.
Yeah, and that was a resident. So, I mean, what's a visitor? When
Right.
visitors.
That's exactly right. So we need to reach out to NCDOT and see if we can make that happen.
I think the chief there would, both of them at Buxton and BVFD would be on board with that. I'm
Right.
confident. What do you think, Steve?
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think they'd be on board with that. Because like you said, that fire station is right in the curve.
Right.
And like I said, even with the residents that know it's there, still could have a problem, especially if a visitor has no idea.
Right, it has no
And they're
idea.
hearing a siren and they're like, oh my God, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden here comes a truck out of
Well,
on top of it.
we need to
Because
see. if
not
we-
only does it come out on the side of the road, but also you got an intersecting road on the other side of it too. So it could be very confusing.
I'll make a call this afternoon.
All right. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Commissioner Couch. Commissioner Ross.
Yeah, I'll be brief. Irv, congratulations. Welcome. The swearing-in ceremony.
Thank you.
That's great. On a personal note, during the Christmas season, I just wanted to compliment the Elizabethan Gardens. I don't know if you guys got over there or not for that light presentation, the
Nice.
Christmas lights. I just was so impressed. I thought it was terrific. I just wanted to call it out and let everybody know what a great job they did. We've got three folks sitting in the back, three really good folks, Lee Goldman, Chief Collins, and I apologize. We met at the Twyford, Ashley, yes, in our flight team, on the helicopter team. We met at the Twyford building. Two things that these guys and others do, and I know, Mr. Chairman, you saw the email.
Yep.
Toys for Tots program. Lee was good enough to invite me to kind of learn more about it. And the chief sent me a few notes here. These folks collect at 50 different locations, toys for kids in need, 123 different boxes being collected. The biggest day of collection is the day after Thanksgiving. Raining like crazy that day. What happened? Everybody worked in the rain anyway. Is that right? Everybody worked in the rain. And Kellogg Supply gave us and loaned us a big box truck to help collect all this stuff, right? Then we have to have a store. A store? What do you mean a store? Have you guys ever seen the operation these guys do? Lee was kind enough to take me over to that building. This store is massive. And Ashley was over there working with another colleague. And do you remember the question I asked you, Ashley? I said, why are you doing this? And you said, because we got to set the toys up. And I said, no, that's not what I mean. Why are you doing this? Do you remember what you told me? Because it's the right thing to do. It's Christmas time.
Excellent.
So I just want to call out these guys. This is work that is phenomenal, and it doesn't stop there. They've got something else called Christmas lights, or lights of Christmas, excuse me. Families, just regular folks like you and me, run into problems, crises at the holiday time. And these guys have a program that's really neat. They enlist police, paramedic, firefighters, trucks, lights, sirens. These families are then visited at night. And the kids are distracted with all the lights and the people and oh my goodness. And while they're going around, wrapped gifts are then set up and delivered by public safety personnel, coordinating with the moms and dads of these kids that need it. And lo and behold, on Christmas morning, guess what? What do they get? You doggone right. So I'm calling these guys out for being the best of the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
That's all I have.
Commissioner House.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to add on to your Toys for Tots, with the Outer Banks Jeep Charities Group, we had a call from Miss Sandy over at the
Yes.
Virginia Tillett Center. And she was concerned that she was going to have a shortfall. The Outer Banks Jeep Charities Group got together with Cat 5 Jeepers and we went shopping at Walmart. Over $6,000 were spent on toys, and those were delivered over to the Virginia Tillett Center for the underprivileged children of Dare County. So the Christmas spirit is alive and well throughout Dare County, throughout the emergency services, and also the support of many of the charity groups that are around Dare County. Also, our Wounded Warriors in Action will be here later on this month to do some duck hunting and fishing and some camaraderie with them. These are all, like I said, they're Purple Heart recipients that have not only served our nation, our military, but also have had personal sacrifices due to their injuries. And I want to commend them and welcome them to Dare County. Our day in history, got a few things. In 1496, Leonardo da Vinci first tried his flying machine. As we all know from Dare County's history, it was not successful because we have the first flight here. 1925, Mussolini dissolved the Italian parliament and became the first dictator of Italy. And after World War II, we know what happened to that. And Commissioner Ross, you're our finance guy, know a lot about finances and stuff like that. In 1972,
good Lord,
how would you have liked to bought stock in Apple Computer?
Boy,
this was the day they incorporated.
That was a good plan then.
Yeah. So with that, I want to wish everybody a very happy new year, and May 2023 be a whole lot better than 2022. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner House. Unfortunately, I just rose this stock a little bit myself. I had to buy a new laptop. Commissioner, Vice Chairman.
I hope it works. As always, I'd like to recognize the employees of the month, and Mr. Jack Scarborough that got it this month certainly is a gem. We got very, very lucky or very fortunate to have him come in, and as the county manager pointed out, to come in and provide such a seamless transition was unexpected and very welcome. And we certainly appreciate his efforts. Like to hope everyone had a happy New Year celebration. I believe we're going to have a challenging year ahead, both locally and as a country, and best wishes to us all in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, can I add one thing, please?
Yes, sir.
The most important thing we have coming up, guys, this is very, very important. On February 25th, Mr. Ross, we have the polar plunge.
I'm sorry, Herb, something's wrong with the
February
microphone.
25th.
It's not coming
Yeah,
through.
you two continue to represent
February
us, and thank you
25th.
very
I'm sorry,
much.
I can't hear you.
Polar
down there.
plunge is very important,
I
Special
get that.
Olympics. I
February
challenge
25th.
all the yo-yos up here to go jump in with me.
Oh, we've done that in the past. That's the old hat. We gotta
And I don't
find
have any hot
something
water
new.
in my house. I
You
feel
know,
your pain.
I've done that several times.
We're going to have a good time.
I might take you up on it.
Come on out and laugh at us.
I might take you up on it.
It's a good time. It's for a very, very
February
good cause.
25th.
February 25th.
Where is it? Where's
Jeanette's.
Jeanette's Pier,
Jeanette's.
10 o'clock.
here.
The temperature yesterday, I believe, was 52 degrees, the water temperature.
That was February 25th?
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It won't be bad.
No, thank you, Irvin. We've lost some good folks in 2022. Another one, Danny, thank you for bringing those up. And another one we've lost is a true hardworking citizen in Dare County, and that's Mr. Jim Clark, who passed away recently. He served on our ABC board, and our hearts go out to his wife and their family, and for the loss of Jim. And we certainly appreciated his time on that ABC board and what he did and contributed to that. With that being said, County Manager.
Sir, I have two things. One, on the affordable housing side, several meetings ago, we move forward with looking at the Schiffman property over here on Roanoke Island as a backup plan. That option is about to expire. Late last week, we got the report in from George Wood where we did the wetlands delineation on that. And I put that in front of you at your desk. And it's basically his opinion says that the wetlands won't impede the development of that property. And so rather than let the option expire, I'm asking that you allow us to move forward with purchasing that property so that we have that available should we need it down the road.
Motion to approve.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor then by Commissioner House to approve that purchase.
Second.
Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Bateman. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'd like some explanation of what
Sure.
George Wood is saying here. And
Okay. If you look at the green map, it looks like this. You'll see there's 1, 2, 3, 4 lines that are drawn. The first 3 go to little round circles inside the perimeter of that property. And those 3 circles are the areas that have the potential to be wetlands. The orange areas are high. You can see the rest of that property, 7, 8, 9, 10 feet elevation. You can see all the elevations on that map. 2 of those lines go to old ditches, and the ditches aren't jurisdictional wetlands, so they don't create problems, wetlands problems for that. The second map is just a location map. Up in the top left corner is the Elizabethan Inn, so that would sort of give you an idea where the property is located. And then your cover sheet was the memo from George Wood to Dustin that explained what I just said, and his last paragraph says that the locations of the wetlands will not adversely impact the development potential of the site. In addition, there are nationwide permits which are available to impact the wetlands should they become an impediment to the design. So what he's telling you by that is if you need to do something even with those 3, there's a nationwide permit that lets you move them or mitigate them or whatever, so it doesn't prevent you from developing in that area.
Gotcha.
Bobby,
Excuse me, go
sorry.
ahead, Commissioner.
Yeah, sorry. On this on the parcel map, we've had some questions about the ingress and egress on that piece. Do you see any problems with that? I mean, it's right there, obviously coming off Francis Drake Street.
Yeah, there's an egress there. There's another one. This map doesn't show it very well. Where's that? Down on this side, isn't it?
You can see the street there, it just doesn't, it's not labeled on the map.
There's here, and there's one over here somewhere. Okay, so right where it says Drake Street, right at the E, you'll see 2 lines. That's an ingress off of Drake Street. But then to the right over there, on the shortest side, there's an access through there as well.
Just where it says State Road 1176, just to the right of the 6.
Well, no, it's actually from further down, about halfway to the middle of that shortest property line.
Right.
You can't see it for the trees, but that's where it is.
Okay. No issues?
No issues.
Okay, thank you.
Bobby, did we have any idea what potential number of units could be possibly put on that?
Hadn't got that far. It's what, close to 5 acres. And
Is-
so
Okay, is Woda Cooper, now that Nags Head has, rezoned, the property in Nags Head, they have backed off of that, from what I understand, completely. Are they my last indication, they were looking for other places. Would this be one of those other places they would entertain?
So right now, it's under contract with Coastal Affordable Housing.
Right.
So it's sort of part of our deal with them. If they don't have a suitable location, then it's a location they could use. If they can't use it, then it could be available for Woda Cooper if Woda Cooper wanted it.
So, go ahead.
So they're going for the Board of Adjustment, what a Cooper is in Nags Head. What kind of chance they got to get through there?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, it appears on the surface that Nags Head is committed to preventing a multifamily housing project on that site.
I think it's more than appears, Bobby.
Yeah.
They've made it
It's
crystal
a
clear.
fact. So I think the odds are, if that's what they want, that ultimately they can get there. What hoops they have to jump through and things they have to do to prevent it.
And I thought.
Can't tell
Board
you.
of Adjustment was quasi-judicial, and that's not political. So if they meet the legal requirements, can't they?
The answer to your question is yes. The answer to your question is also they're appointed by the Nags Head Board, so.
Bob, just a question regarding George's report here. Can anybody federally or statewide come in and overrule any of this?
So what happens now is he's delineated the wetlands. He's sent in, he's got, as you saw from his memo, the surveyor will send in that to the Corps, and the Corps will come in and then confirm those as the wetlands. Theoretically, they could come back and say they're bigger or smaller or whatever, but typically he went out there with the Corps, did the
So
thing.
they were present during his,
I believe so.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
okay, all right.
So likely is it's correct, but the answer is, yeah, they could, until they confirm it, it can change.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anyone else have any other questions for Bobby with this property? I believe we have a motion on the floor and a second. Those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous then.
All right, and then when we get done, we need to go into a closed session, and it's to preserve the attorney-client privilege with regard to the opioid litigation.
Yep. All right, thank you, County Manager. Public Information Officer, Ms. Hester, do you have anything for us this morning?
Nothing to bring forward. Happy New Year to everyone.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I know Ms. Hester and her staff are working diligently with me to, we're about halfway through trying to put together this state of the county, but I think we're looking forward to doing that. It's going to be something a little bit different this year than what we've done in the past. We're not going to try to bore the public with a whole lot of statistics because we certainly know what they are. They're out there. But we're going to have a little bit different flair this year and have some folks from our community come and participate in the presentation. So look forward to giving that. So,
I'm excited about it.
yeah, appreciate all their help with me on this. We're moving along. Public Finance Director, Mr. Clausen, do you have anything else for us?
Sir.
All right. Well, thank you. Bobby, you need a motion
I need a
to
motion.
close session?
Yeah,
in
pursuant
C-
to 143, 318.11A3 to consult with the attorney retained by the county to preserve the attorney-client privilege with regard to the opioid litigation.
It's a motion on the floor to go into closed session. Is there a second?
So,
Seconded by Vice Chairman. Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you for being
Call the board meeting back to order, and I'll turn the meeting over to county manager.
In the closed session, the board approved the minutes of the last closed session and gave the county attorney guidance with regard to the opioid litigation.
Okay,
Took no
thank
other
you.
action.
Thank you, county manager. That brings us to, I need a motion to adjourn until 6 PM on January the 18th, which is the town hall.
So move.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor by Commissioner House. It's been seconded by Commissioner Bateman. Any further discussion?
I thought the 18th was down in
Yeah,
Verdant.
It
that's
is.
what we're
That's
talking
what
about.
it's-
Okay, okay.
Town
It's
hall.
a full board meeting.
I'm
It's a
sorry.
Special
It's
meeting.
it's a full board meeting. Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimous.